Awesome. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I want to thank you guys for bringing your energy, yourselves, your time into this space. My name is Braithwaite, and I'm the Environmental Justice Organizer for Clean Water Action here in New Jersey. And Clean Water Action is a national organization, and we're based on dedicating our work to building communities, protecting the environment, health, and just democracy through advocacy, policy change, and grassroots organizing, which I do a lot. So I'll be guiding this conversation, and our hope here is to really uncover some truths about the beauty industry while also envisioning a future where beauty uplifts us instead of compromises our health. I want to definitely give grace and thanks to the speakers here. So this campaign is called the Tea on Toxic Beauty, and the project was inspired by the tireless efforts of beauty justice leaders in this space, some of which you'll hear from today, our speakers, who for a very, very long time tried to challenge the harmful practices that the beauty industry poses to women of color. So what we're creating here does not exist in a vacuum, right? And hopefully here in New Jersey, we can try to honor the work and add to the work of the organizations already doing this fight to redefine beauty into something more equitable. Awesome. So we got about 70 people here. Welcome those who came a little bit after 6:05. That's cool. So as we gather, I wanted to invite you guys to take a deep breath. Okay. Your presence here, right, is an act of love, I would say, for each other and also the communities most impacted. And tonight, we're going to be turning our attention to the hidden cost of beauty, costs often disproportionately borne by women of color and Black women. So our speakers here are going to share some insights tonight about questioning systems that profit from harm, like the beauty industry, also centering the voices of those who've been historically excluded from the conversations, and really imagining new ways to practice beauty that honor both our internal and external beauty. Awesome. So I wanted to turn for a second to a land acknowledgement. I recognize that we have a lot of states represented here. I'm personally from Newark, New Jersey. That's a little picture of Newark, and that's where I'm based for this webinar tonight. So I want to invite you to silently read this and reflect on your own communities and the indigenous peoples whose land we occupy, and consider the histories of resilience in the fight for justice as well. So I'll give you all a second to read that. Awesome. Thank y'all. Okay, so great. As we begin, I wanted to hold a little space for y'all to introduce yourselves in the chat. If you could please put your name, your pronouns if you wish, or the organization or community you come from, that would be great. And our grounding question to just bring us into this space is, what kind of future are you committed to building? It could be a sentence, it can be a word, future with more equity, etc. So yeah. Okay, I'm seeing inclusivity. I love that. Awesome, awesome. Do we see? Okay, we see sustainability. Sustainability, just a future. Yeah. Yeah, it can be hard to imagine like just a future in general in these times. So definitely understand that. Aids and supports, very cool. Building strong community leaders. I love that. Awesome. Awesome. So feel free to continue introducing yourselves in the chat. This was amazing. So I wanted to definitely turn now to bringing your questions, bringing your thoughts to this conversation. There's going to be a dedicated part of this program for discussion later, so feel free to ask them in the chat, or it would be really helpful since there's a lot of y'all to just save your questions and ask them in the thoughts and answers, just so we don't get it too mixed up with the other comments. So. Our hope tonight is to leave you feeling more empowered, informed, and ready to drive change on this issue. So thank you guys again for choosing to be here and turning your attention to this work tonight. Awesome. So a little overview of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be having a brief overview of what beauty justice is. I know that's sometimes a new term for folks, a keynote address from Dr. Emily Barrett, a panel discussion from beauty justice advocates, thoughts and answers, and then call to action and resources. So the main topics that are going to be covered are the risks of toxic beauty products, how Eurocentric beauty standards shape beauty product use, and the fight for inclusive and safer products and practices. Awesome. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of what beauty justice is before we get into everything. So beauty justice is essentially a concept that incorporates the fact that social factors influence product use, and they also add to potential cumulative impacts of environmental exposure. So what all that fancy things means is that essentially people who use these products the most often come from the communities that are the most harmed environmentally by their areas. So for example, I live in Newark. There's a lot of pollution in Newark. 1 in 4 children in Newark have asthma, truck traffic, etc. So what that means, let alone where we live, but the products that disproportionately have chemicals that can harm us adds to that exposure. So it really tries to uncover that. It also recognizes that women from marginalized communities are overexposed and underprotected. So we have the worst chemicals in the products, and I'll get into a little bit of the facts and stats about that later. Yet we use the products the most, or I guess subscribe the most to the beauty industry. It also links the intersections of oppression to Eurocentric beauty norms, such as having lighter skin or straight hair, and then racialized practices, which means people being preferred for jobs, people being preferred for status to have these things. What it is not. So it is not a attempt to cast blame at all by the people who are targeted. So we're not saying throw all your products away or you've been doing this wrong the whole time. That is not what we're saying at all. What we're saying is we are trying to change the conditions of harm over minds, right? We have to be actively trying to get industries to be accountable for the products they use. So it is not a move to pressure consumers into buying products that are also inaccessible to them. You might not live near a place that sells a lot of clean beauty products. They might be financially out of your budget. So with all that being said, we understand that there are a lot of individual challenges, but what we really want to get at in this webinar is how those individual challenges scale up into systems of harm. So the numbers don't lie. So the beauty industry is worth about $100 billion, and the industry uses about 10,000 chemicals. The EU, or the European Union, bans over 2,400 of these chemicals, whereas the US only bans 11. Let's just sit with that. The average product use for Americans daily is about 12, and in those 12, we're exposed often to 168 unique chemicals. And this is the part where disproportionate impacts come in. Black women spend about $7.5 billion a year on the beauty industry, and the products we use disproportionately give us adverse health effects. So this one at the bottom is specific to breast cancer and the use of hair dye in Black women. So this is saying you have a 60% higher chance of getting breast cancer if you use hair dyes that especially marketed towards Black women. And the second image here I got from Bench to Community. Dr. Tate Brooks is a professor and also does a lot of research, deeply looking into the intersections of product use and breast cancer. And these are all the disparities we look at when we see how the chemicals in these products interact with our bodies. So, for example, when we use these products, Black women are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer. It's also more likely to spread. We're also 2 times more likely to get diagnosed under the age of 35. And the recurrence is 39% higher in the Black women community. So those are just a little bit of some facts for you to give context to our discussion. And again, any questions y'all have, feel free to either put them in the chat or save them for the end where we'll have our thoughts and answers. So now that we've framed our discussion, it's my honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Barrett. Dr. Barrett is a professor at Rutgers School of Public Health, and she specializes in early life origins and health and disease. Her research explores how everyday chemicals impact health, linking exposures to pregnancy complications, child development, and health disparities. So Dr. Barrett's work shines a light on how everyday chemicals can affect our health, especially in ways that impact women of color. Her expertise bridges the gap between science and advocacy and empowers us with the knowledge we need in this space to demand change. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Barrett.
Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. All right. So, well, first of all, I want to thank X and Clean Water Action for inviting me to speak with you today. I'm really honored to be here with you to learn from all the panelists. And honestly, seeing the messages in the chat was very inspiring, given the hard times we're in right now. So I'm really thankful to be here with all of you. So let me jump right in. I'm going to be talking to you today about chemical exposures in personal care products. Should we be worried, and what can we do? So our lab works on chemicals that are found in everyday products and how they might impact our health. So we've done a lot of work on chemicals that are found in the food that we eat, the water that we drink. And so the reason I was invited to talk to you today is that increasingly we're also worried about the chemicals that might be in the personal care products that we all use on our bodies, often on a daily basis. So we're going to talk about the potential health impacts and also start to think about how we can move towards solutions to protect ourselves. So if you can think for a moment about all the products that you use on a typical day, you're probably thinking of things like toothpaste and mouthwash and hand soap and sanitizer, shower gel, lotion, shampoo, conditioners, makeup, nail polish, and more. It's clear this is an enormous industry and it continues to expand. So there was a study done back in 2014 that showed that the average man used about 6 products every day and the average woman used about 12 products. And when we surveyed people here in New Jersey a few years ago, they actually reported that they were using even more products than 2014. So the average woman in our study was using 19 products a day, and some individual participants were using upwards of 30 products a day. So if you do the math and kind of calculate out, that means that the average person is being exposed to hundreds of chemicals every day through the products that they put on their bodies. And that's important because the more products we use, the higher our level of exposure to man-made chemicals that can easily go through our skin, or we can inhale them or ingest them. So this study of Black women living in the Detroit area found that use of certain types of hair products, so things like relaxers and straighteners and perms, hair oils and hair food, were associated with higher levels of multiple types of synthetic chemicals in their urine. And these are chemicals that we know may be harmful to our health. There's been similar work done in kids. So this was a study where they asked parents, do you put hair oils or baby lotions on your kids And when they looked in the urine of those children whose parents used hair oil and baby lotion had higher levels of hormone disrupting chemicals in their bodies. So this is true in women, this is true in kids. So why do we care that all these chemicals are in our bodies? Well, we know that they've been linked to lots of different adverse health impacts. So disrupting hormone levels, some of them have been linked to cancer risks, and some of them are developmental toxicants, meaning that they can be harmful to children or fetuses. And so I'm going to go through these health issues in a little bit more detail for a minute. So a lot of work is being done now on whether chemicals that are found in personal care products might be elevating our reproductive cancer risks. So several large-scale studies have been done on this, including work done by my colleague Deonna in the Women's Circle of Health study here in New Jersey. There's also work through the sister study at NIH and the Black Women's Health study at Boston University. And basically what they're showing is increased risk of breast cancer associated with the use of certain types of products. So you can see the first bullet, about 50% higher risk of breast cancer with regular use of dark hair dyes among Black women. That's been shown in multiple studies now, in totally separate studies showing the same result. It's also important to kind of understand when people start using products and how long they're using them for. So in another study, we were able to show that when you start using relaxers earlier or you use them over more years, those women who go on to have breast cancer actually have larger tumors. Unless you think it's only about hair products, there's also just evidence from use of beauty products in general showing that people who report moderate and frequent beauty product use have up to 15% higher breast cancer risk compared to infrequent users. So really growing evidence that the products that we're putting in our bodies may put us at risk of breast cancer. So our lab does a lot of work on pregnancy. And so I wanna think about preterm birth for a minute. So preterm birth is a huge problem in the United States. It's any baby born before 37 weeks gestation, and it's a huge source of morbidity and mortality. The US does terribly in terms of preterm birth. We have a preterm birth rate of over 10%. And as I'm sure you all know, Black and American Indian Alaska Native babies are 1.5 times more likely to be born preterm than babies of other races. So there's huge disparities. And so we've been working with colleagues at NIH, Barrett, Walsh, and Kelly Ferguson, shown here, on a class of chemicals called phthalates. So these are chemicals that are in lots of personal care products. They're good at holding on to color and scent, and they're often kind of contained under the ingredient fragrance. That usually means they're phthalates. And we've been able to show together that women who have higher levels of exposure to phthalates have higher preterm birth risks. But the reason why I wanted to highlight this study is that we actually took the next step. And so what we did was we started to look at whether the chemicals that are in those personal care products might actually be responsible for some of the preterm births that are going on and the disparities that we see by race. So this first panel, it's a little confusing, but basically each row is a different phthalate. The dotted line represents what levels of these chemicals are like in white women. And then you can see in orange levels in Black women, in purple levels in Hispanic and Latina women, and in green levels in Asian women. So anything to the right of the dotted line means higher levels. So what you're seeing basically is that for every single one of these synthetic chemicals that are made in a factory, that Black women and Hispanic and Latina women have higher levels than white women. And we think that these chemicals are linked to preterm birth. So what we did next was we basically used statistical models to do sort of a hypothetical intervention. And what we asked is, if we were able to lower the levels of phthalates in Black women and in Latina women to the levels that we see in white women, these lower levels, could we prevent preterm births? And so what we were able to show in those statistical models was that indeed we could. So we could reduce preterm birth in Black women by up to 13% if we were able to lower levels of phthalate exposure. And in Latina women, it was about 9%. So this is actually a pretty huge public health intervention if we could reduce people's exposure. So that leads me to kind of the next thing that people usually ask when I start talking about phthalates and preterm birth is, how do I reduce my exposure? And so I think that's going to be a big topic of conversation here today, but I just want to open that up. So the first thing is there are tools on the market that will help you buy safer products. So things like Cleary or the Environmental Working Group's Skin Deep database. So we've done surveys of New Jersey adults, and one of the interesting things that we've seen is that people who are concerned about the safety of their personal care products often use just as many products as people who aren't really concerned at all. But what they do differently is that they are more likely to use clean beauty apps and websites. They're more likely to read ingredient lists. And when you look at the products that they're using, so we've actually asked people to write down every single product you use, give us the brand name, give us the color, give us the scent. The people who use the apps end up choosing products that are less hazardous. So the apps really do work if you want to use them. But I also want to note that there are systemic barriers as well. So when we did these surveys of New Jersey folks, we noticed that Black women in our study were twice as likely to report having used a hair product that was rated as highly hazardous in the last day or two. So we can ask ourselves why that is, and I'm sure we're going to be unpacking that tonight. But there's one study I wanted to highlight that I think gives us some clues. So this is a study that's done by my colleague Tamara James Todd and Marissa Chan, who's one of her doctoral students. And they basically went into stores in Boston neighborhoods, 8 neighborhoods around Boston, and they looked on the shelves of the stores to see what do they actually sell? What are the hair products that are available to people in those communities? And what they saw was that the stores that were located in more diverse communities and had communities where more people were living below the poverty line were over twice as likely to sell hair products that were rated as highly hazardous compared to stores found in wealthier communities. So there's really an access issue as well that prevents people from often getting safer products. So with that, I'm just going to wrap up by kind of giving you a few takeaway messages. So the first is, at least our evidence shows that people are using more personal care products than ever. Many of those products contain chemicals with known health hazards like hormone disruptors and carcinogens. We can reduce our exposures to potentially lower health risks, and we should take advantage of those tools to inform safer consumer choices, but we also need to think collectively about how we can break down these structural barriers that are preventing people from getting access to safer products. So with that, I just want to give a shout out to all my collaborators and folks on my team who have been doing all this work and our funders. And I'm looking forward to chatting with you all for the rest of the evening. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Barrett. There is definitely an undeniable link between health outcomes and the products that we use. So I hope these studies definitely gave you a little bit more context. So it's not like all products can cause these harms, but there are specific patterns that researchers, scientists are picking out that we can change or correct. So really glad. Yeah. And you can still see my screen? Awesome, it changed. Great. So now I actually wanted to turn to our panelists, an incredible group of leaders who are driving change in the beauty justice space, as well as public health. I want to introduce Marcha Chaudry. Marcha is an attorney with over 15 years of experience in nonprofit leadership, public policy, and advocacy. She is also the founder of the Equity and Wellness Collaborative and a leader in cosmetic policy as well as women's health. Arnedra Jordan is a political scientist and an advocate for reproductive justice with over 15 years of experience. She is a professor and a project manager at Black Women for Wellness, where she leads initiatives on breast health, beauty justice, and environmental policy. Then we have Elizabeth Reyez. Elizabeth is the Toxic Policies Campaign Coordinator at WEACT for Environmental Justice, based in New York. By the way, I should probably say where these folks are based. These are New Jersey friends, but not New Jersey natives. Marcha is based in Florida. Arnedra and Black Women for Wellness are based in California, and WEACT for Environmental Justice is based in New York City. So like I said, she's a toxic policy coordinator, and she works to pass legislation protecting communities from harmful chemicals in their homes and in their personal care products. And last but not least, we have Deonna Williams Square. She is a healthcare administrator in New Jersey, by the way, and a public health advocate with over 7 years of experience. She has a dual master's degree in public administration and public health, and her research focuses on the harmful effects of hair relaxers on Black women and their links to cancer. All right, welcome, ladies. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank y'all so much for joining us. So I'll be moderating, I'll be asking the questions, and feel free to jump in wherever feels appropriate. Okay, so now that we have that set up, so our discussion, first question, what inspired you to get involved in this work, and how have your personal or professional experiences shaped how you understand the impact of beauty norms, specifically on women of color?
I don't mind starting off. Um, so I think what inspired me to get into this work is just my personal experiences, and I'll start off with the first product of hair relaxers. I think I was using hair relaxers for a while, probably since I was like 11, 12. And over the years, I started to see a change within my hair, but it almost seemed like it was somewhat of tradition. I don't want to say tradition, but it seemed like it was. But I noticed a change in my hair. And for once, I wanted to take the time and kind of investigate like what the ingredients were in that product. And then once I did, I started to see, a lot of like articles and a lot of articles stating the linkage to cancer and the endocrine disruptors, puberty disruption. So a lot of different things that I noticed, and I was just like, wow, I never thought to look at the ingredients before. So I think that's what kind of got me, into it at first. And then in reference to, professional experiences, I think I started to think of reasons why I wanted to relax to begin with. And just like fast forwarding to my professional experience, I felt in a semi-corporate environment, I didn't see many African American women with their natural hair out. I seen a lot of women with straight hair, and I noticed that there was discussion amongst us African American women about discrimination in the workplace in reference to hair. And I know there are a lot of things like the Crown Act and different things like that that show that women have been discriminated against. But I think that was why I hopped into it. And I think just looking at my professional experiences, I started to kind of analyze the psychology as to why I felt the need to relax my hair.
And I can say the same. I'll just jump in. Similar to Deonna, in my personal experience, growing up, I used hair relaxers, and I just remember seeing the marketing of different relaxer products being marketed to girls, because at the time I might have been 10 years old, and then begging my mom to give me a relaxer. And fast forward to going through law school, and then working in women's health policy and being in charge of developing a cosmetic policy program, I was just shocked at the number of studies, highlighting the risk and the health outcomes of Black women and girls after using these products. And that was my first time being exposed to the health risks and the issues within the ingredients, and that really drove me to further become more inspired and just and passionate about the work, because it affected me personally and my community. So on top of the personal experience, just being entrenched in the policy space and being able to sit with congressional staffers and have discussions about why we need changes in regulation was very easy for me. And it felt very natural to be able to advocate for something that was directly impacting me and my community.
I can go next. So from a personal experience, I just remember my hair coming out in groves because I tried to perm my hair myself. And I would not recommend that to anyone. So just thinking that, also playing with these chemicals as Black women and not knowing what we're doing, because these chemicals should be used by a professional. That's why people go to cosmetology school. And so also for Black Women for Wellness, we at Black Women for Wellness, we are accustomed and we will continue to be on the protection of Black women and girls. So as we looked at the beauty products that Black women used, we realized that there were a couple of things. And we didn't just, this didn't start with just me. It started years ago with the research, advocacy, and in community education when we looked at the disparities among health risks for Black women due to toxic beauty standards and unregulated chemical exposures in personal care. And so Black Women for Wellness has done this over the course of 30 years through listening sessions, town halls, partnerships with researchers, and, we also see firsthand from women who come in who may have had breast cancer and they feel like they're less because they're missing a breast, or they come in and they've used skin lightening ingredients and now their skin is in 4 different colors. So they have to wear makeup to even it out if they choose to. So we want to make sure that, we as Black women set the norm that however you come here on this earth is you're beautiful. So we want to make sure and that you don't need to perm your hair. You don't need to be using chemicals and not know what you're doing. You need to just embrace your own beauty. So that's what we advocate for Black women and girls.
And I can add my 2 cents. Similar to everyone, I think my personal experiences and my upbringings have definitely impacted the work that I do and why I got involved into this. I got involved through a community organizing aspect. I started off doing community organizing for beauty justice, but prior to that, I grew up in the salon. I know exactly like firsthand experiences of like wanting to have like straighter hair, wanting to present yourself a certain way, really impacting these certain products that you use, but also growing up surrounded by a lot of women who had a lot of fertility issues, who also suffered from a lot of hormone disrupting I guess diseases. It really put like my curious mind of like being interested in health and in the environment. And I sort of became like involved in community organizing for policies that try to ban like the most toxic chemicals. And yeah, and through that, and my advocacy work, being involved with women who have suffered many sorry, I'm like super nervous who have suffered many harms as it relates to like maybe like skin allergies. I've met a lot of women who have dealt with a lot of like cancers, all because of the different products that they use. Many not knowing that these toxins are in our products in the first place, right? Because you don't necessarily assume like when you're going into the store that what you're picking up is harming you, but unfortunately it does.
I also want to add that, what keeps me currently involved is having that background and understanding as an advocate, and now being able to directly assist businesses that are developing products and be able to advise them on which ingredients to avoid and how to make their products more clean and sustainable. That's really empowering for me as someone who's previously worked in policy, understands the issues from a regulatory standpoint, and being able to directly guide a company in compliance as well.
Definitely. Thank you all. So I know you guys alluded to it and definitely directly mentioned your experiences with the health risks. I'm wondering, just from your from your professional experiences and doing this research and this deep work on how Black women relate to beauty products, what are the most pressing health effects or risks associated with the toxic products marketed specifically towards Black women? And how have these products been disproportionately put into our communities?
I'll start. They're marketed as cheap. You can buy a perm for $6 in Walmart. Um, and then the second thing is that we see that Black women, we're more likely to get uterine fibroids, breast cancer. We're more likely to have fertility issues. And as I was doing my research, I was like, let me look and see, I read this study and it said that 75% of products marketed to Black women contain toxic ingredients compared to 50% of products marketed to white women. So when we look at the statistics, I think about that's 25% more. So you telling me that the same makeup product that I'm buying has 25% more toxins in it, and I'm using that every day and putting it on my face and my body. And that's not including all the exposures I'm exposed to for air, etc., what we're eating, etc., right? And then also I was doing some research and Black Women for Wellness, we have our own research that we've done with hair relaxers, skin lightening creams, and personal products like scented products. But when I was also doing some more research, when I was looking at the uterine fibroids for Black women, um, it's 3 times the rate. And most of it, when they did the surveys, most of the women had used perms in their hair for over 10 years. And so we do have a taking stock program here at Black Women for Wellness where women can join if they want to stop using perms and go natural. And in that, and what we do there is that we help you, but we're also doing research and studying to see if it's going to decrease, whether or not you are going to be diagnosed with breast cancer. So just making sure that Black women are taking care of themselves. And a lot of times I don't think we also know that what we're putting into our bodies because no one tells us. If it's, well, it's on the shelf and they're selling it to us, so it's okay to use. And then you find out that that toothpaste you're using actually has rat poison in it. So, so you have to be able to also be educated so that, and this is one of the things that we do is provide education to Black women and girls so that they know how to make healthier choices for themselves. Because it's not just about telling somebody, oh, if you use this product, you might get breast cancer. It's about telling them, well, here are some alternatives that you can use. And I want you to read the ingredients for yourself so you can make educated decisions.
And just to add to what Arnedra mentioned in regards to consumers just sort of assuming that products in the stores are safe, there is a lack of regulation, and that in conjunction with the targeted marketing of these products contribute to long-term disparities. And so, MOCRA was passed a few years ago, but that still doesn't give the FDA pre-approval authority. So products that are currently in stores in 2025 have not been approved by the FDA, and that's not a process that takes place at all. And so consumers do need to be aware of this and educate themselves. And so I'm really glad that we have this space to be able to do that. And it's really important.
Yeah, Marcia, I actually want to take a pause there for a second. Can you explain what MOCRA is and like why it's so important? And also like the groups involved in like making that happen?
Yes, I can do the first part. The second part, in terms of the groups that were involved, there's a lot of groups. There's many, many groups, but MOCRA is the modernization of the Cosmetic Regulation Act, and it was passed in 2022. MOCRA has several regulatory requirements now that weren't in place prior. I think it had been like over 80 years since any cosmetic policy was passed in that space. And so MOCRA now requires certain businesses to register their products with the FDA. Big businesses, especially, they're required if they're grossing over a certain amount of money a year. Smaller businesses may have to register their products depending on what kind of products that they market and produce. Like, for example, eye products are products that are more, may come in contact with certain parts of the body. MOCRA also requires facility registration. There's some safety aspects to MOCRA as well. So it requires adverse event reporting. So now if a consumer is harmed by a product, or businesses are required to have a process in place to be able to intake and assess those, I wouldn't say complaints, but those harms, and then report them to the FDA within a specific amount of time. MOCRA also has some updated labeling requirements requiring businesses to have their contact information on the label. So at least when you're using a product in your home, you know how to reach the brand. But again, it does not go as far as to allow the FDA or give the FDA authority to approve products. So there's still a long way to go, I think, in terms of making sure that products are completely safe, but MOCRA has made steps to ensure that companies are now a little bit more responsible for safety after their product is in the market, like if a consumer is harmed, and then also with the registration being able to at least have a database of the products that are currently in the market for some small businesses and big businesses as well.
Thank you. So I
Oh,
actually,
okay. That was a two-part question. I forgot.
oh
So
yeah, no, go on.
yeah, the second part, there were a lot of advocacy groups that were involved in helping MOCRA get passed. At the time prior to MOCRA, I was a big advocate in the industry or in the nonprofit space. I worked alongside breast cancer prevention partners, WEACT, some of the people on this call. Black Women for Wellness, a lot of the consumer advocacy groups. So we were having meetings monthly or even bi-weekly to really come together and have coalition to push for stronger regulations.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. There were definitely over 50 groups involved in passing MOCRA, and unfortunately, they didn't get all what they asked for in the original version of the bill, but many, many groups coming together, Black Women for Wellness, WEACT definitely, and making this issue seen because community advocates are really the only reason why they've updated this law in over 80 years, like Marcia said. So thank you for that explanation. Yeah, so I just wanted to move on to why exactly are toxic products so heavily marketed towards Black women? So like what is the grab? And how do systemic inequities within the beauty industry contribute to the problem?
I can start with that too. I think, these toxic products are marketed heavily towards Black women because I think companies know and understand that Black women are heavy consumers within, the beauty industry. And I think it's also a play on just history and Eurocentric beauty standards. Like, for instance, we just discussed discrimination within the workplace, in reference to hair. So I feel like companies will know that and then advertise a relaxer to specifically Black women because they know exactly what we're going through. So much so that I think it's not only advertised to Black women, but Black children as well. So there's this ideology about relaxers that we keep on bringing up. And one of my areas of focus right now is definitely acknowledging the Just For Me relaxer. That's considered a children relaxer. And to me, it's almost synonymous to like tobacco. Like we know tobacco has a direct linkage to cancer. You would never see, someone advertising, or back in the day, they actually used to try to advertise it to kids and then they got banned. But similar concepts in just advertising, certain things to consumers that they know are harmful, but they know that the consumers will buy it. So I think it's just, that history of just the Eurocentric standard, stemming back from, slavery and just different things like that these companies are playing on. And then in reference to the systemic inequities within the beauty industry, I definitely think Black-owned brands, receive less investment and less shelf space, which is, I feel like there's a lot of Black brands that are trying their best to get as much shelf space as other companies. And then also we see a lot of Black-owned products that start off Black owned and then they sell the product and then the product is remade with different ingredients, and then that core African American base that were using the products then start to say, their hair is falling out from the products because the chemicals have changed and just different things like that. So we definitely just see a lot of different trends happening within the field. But I think Marcia had brought this up as well. I think another big issue, and Marcia, please correct me if I'm wrong, because you're good with the regulatory, but I think one of the biggest issues is, if I'm not mistaken, certain cosmetic products don't require the pre-market approval and they're just out, on the market. And I think that's terrible because now we have products again like relaxers, and now companies are trying to, remove things like formaldehyde from the products to then like intervene and try to get the product off, but that process takes like years to happen. So I think, you know, we see a lot of that. And then you see a lot of companies also getting around certain things. Like I looked at a relaxer the other day and I was looking for the ingredients on the box, and they put the ingredients under the box, like on the, under it. So I'm like, these companies know, you know, what they're doing. But I think it's just playing on knowing that Black women will buy the product for a specific reason.
Yeah, and you are right. I did mention that. And no, like the FDA doesn't approve any products in the market at all. You know, states are coming out with their own restrictions, like California, New York, Washington. But then if you don't comply as a business, I mean, you can still market your product. No one's stopping you from marketing it. So there isn't a pre-market approval process. So that's an issue. Also, I mean, this is a capitalist society. And so Black women spend more than any other demographic on certain products, especially hair products. And so I think that is definitely an aspect that businesses take advantage of. They market, you know, spend money on marketing to target these groups. And with the, you know, it's a holistic issue. So with the lack of regulation plus marketing plus, you know, playing on insecurities and other issues, we as in Black women, we just become targets for this.
And can I say that I think also it goes back to education. Like if we were just like we're budgeting our budget and we look at something and say, oh, it's $25. If we read the ingredients and said this has over 25 chemicals in it, why am I putting it in my body? Then, you know, if we looked at it the same way as we look at the price tag of things, I think that that would also help Black women to stop buying certain products. And I also think that we also can't always tell people that they're unprofessional or unkept because their hair looks a certain way or they're dressed in a certain clothing item. So because that's where we keep doing the systematic racism. That's where it keeps coming from. And you know, and making sure that we embrace Black women. So one of the things is just going back to education and making sure that Black women understand how to read labels and to make the decisions based on what ingredients. If you can't pronounce it, maybe you shouldn't be buying it. And then also there should just like on cigarettes, there's a full disclosure about it may cause cancer. So if you know that that product you picked up, that lipstick may cause cancer, if it's actually written on the lipstick, it may stop you from purchasing it. So I think those are some of the things, and just being more focused on regulations, like asking for regulations, asking that you know, if we stop buying, then they won't make any profit. So they'll change what they're doing. If we start creating our own products and making sure that, you know, they don't have all the chemicals in it, then we won't have to purchase from people who don't have us at best interest.
Yeah. So you definitely kind of went into the next question, which is fine because this is really the crux of what's going on. Eurocentric beauty standards have obviously shaped the buying habits of Black women, but I'm wondering, I guess I want to change this question. I'm wondering how historically, like, how did we get here? How did we get the products that become marketed to our communities? Do you think that there's a historical link to Eurocentric beauty standards? And how does that shape how consumers behave?
I can talk a little bit about this. So definitely, racialized beauty standards that prefer and give preference to women that have lighter skin, women that have straighter hair, definitely affect like the toxics that we come in contact with and the toxics that we're exposed to. And WEACT actually did a study on this to actually figure out how European beauty standards affect our community and the different products that people in Northern Manhattan and in the South Bronx are coming into contact with every day. And so we surveyed, it was in 2019, and we surveyed around 300 femme-identifying people of color in Northern Manhattan and in the Bronx. And we wanted to, again, understand the type of products that they use, but also why they were using these products. And we specifically focused on chemical straighteners and skin lighteners because chemical straighteners often contain like formaldehyde, phthalates, parabens, which are often like associated with fibroids and breast cancers. And skin lighteners actually contain mercury sometimes, and mercury exposure increases your like kidney and nervous system damage. And it wasn't actually until like last year, 2 years ago, that mercury was banned from skin lighteners in New York State. But some of the key findings of that study was that the main reason why our participants use these beauty products, it's because they wanted to achieve a certain beauty standard. Over like 44% of them reported using chemical straighteners, and over 60% reported using skin lighteners. And so our respondents responded that they thought that the belief that other people would perceive them as prettier, as more professional, as wealthier was really the main reason why they were using these products. And so yeah, I think like these belief systems are ingrained in our communities, unfortunately, and so that just outsources like our need to want to use these products more. And unfortunately, these are the products that often contain these really toxic ingredients. And so that has kind of led like our effort to a lot of like our beauty justice work, which is why this year we're actually advocating for the beauty justice bill, which would ban about like 20 of the most toxic chemicals in all of our personal care products, but more specifically toxic chemicals that are mainly found in personal care products that are targeted toward women of colors, things like lead, PFAS, mercury, formaldehyde, etc.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of good work coming out of WEACT, a lot of the community-based organizations that are partnering with the universities to discover this issue, or just doing that on their own as a participatory action research project, because it's about time, that we started evaluating how our communities think about these issues so we can address those health impacts. Great. And y'all are very comprehensive. So honestly, I'm just going to skip the next question because you kind of answered it, just specific examples. But I really wanted to go into your cultural and community-based advocacy efforts. In what ways do telling our stories and cultural advocacy reshape the narrative around beauty and help empower women of color?
For Black Women for Wellness, it's how we tell our stories. So, right, we do storytelling, we have media, we have digital campaigns, we do community education that challenge beauty norms, advocacy work. Black Women for Wellness was one of the instrumental groups with the Crown Act, hosting healing circles for Black women, hosting spaces where Black women can come together and talk about their cultural experiences, and just making sure that artists are there. We had a coloring day one day where you could color. So, and through all of our initiatives for Black women, like we have our taking stock program, we have our EPA program, but we also have like a menopause conference coming up. We have a beauty justice conference coming up. So ways where women can come together. We have what we call for Black women over 50 called Grown and Sexy. But these through using this like art and media and talking about natural, safe, and beauty and cultural acceptance, we are able to have a space where Black women can come together and heal.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely have been looking into your sister circles, just from a personal aspect and being a community organizer. I think it matters so much more than telling the information, than really helping communities understand by relating it to things that they already do or practices that they already see as beneficial. So sister circles, just having advocacy spaces that are dedicated and safe spaces for us to talk about these issues, because it also comes from a very vulnerable place, like talking about why you use skin lighteners, talking about how your parents or whatever have forced you to use relaxers. It is a vulnerable topic. So it's definitely important to tell our stories and be in charge of our own stories.
And can I add that a lot of times you'll find out that the hair loss came from the perms that you're experiencing now, some of the skin discoloration. And I think that's something that is important, the scalp burns and all of that, that we continue that talk, why more Black women have to have hysterectomies, so I think it's important that we also, and then just the self-esteem. So I think it's important that we continue those conversations so we can just lift one another up.
And Marcia?
Oh, I was just going to add that I think it's great that you're having this space and with so many people registered and in this meeting and at this time, especially as someone who's worked in nonprofit for a very long time, a lot of the meetings or Zoom meetings that provide so much information are often in the morning or like in the afternoon during people's work scheduled hours. And so being able to be strategic about when we're having these conversations, I think is really important, especially because there's such a lack of education.
For sure. Definitely. Because if it's for me, if it's not for the community, then who is it for? People have work, they have busy schedules. So I appreciate y'all for taking this time out, and we definitely want to make it more accessible for people to join us, because it's an important conversation, especially for those who often can't make it to these discussions. Awesome. So we just have two more questions. Please hang in there for your thoughts and answers. One of our very last questions. In your experience, what resources, partnerships, or strategies have been most effective in challenging these norms and just advocating for safer products?
I can take this question. I know we're also like running a little behind on, I mean a little on time, so I'll make it quick. Um, in addition to like panels like this or community events like this where we're able to gather, really share information, talk about our experiences, learn about beauty justice, learn about the harms that we come in contact with, and also learn, I love how in your slide when you included what beauty justice is and what beauty justice is not. In the what beauty justice is not, I love how you mentioned that it's not placing harm on people, or I mean not placing blame on people. And so I think that, yeah, community events also, I think what has helped us at WEACT has been joining a lot of coalitions with other nonprofits, doctors, other professionals in the space who also do a lot of beauty justice advocacy work, because there's a lot of power in us working together. I feel like individually we all do so many great things, but at least like when there's a lot of collaboration, especially in New York State, it's been really great. We've been able to pass some really great laws that are really effective. And so, yeah, but definitely I'd say from a community standpoint, and my favorite part of this work are like moments like this where we're like just in conversation with each other. So yeah.
And I'll add to that, being as someone who's worked in the nonprofit side and now is in the industry side, I still do have clients in the nonprofit space, but being able to collaborate on both sides, because I think we need to have more discussions together. There's industry scientists and there's also advocacy scientists, and they're not often on the same page because they all obviously have different interests. One has interest in product development, whereas the other side has interest in consumer safety. So being able to have spaces where we can commune and we can have discussions, and as well as policy and advocacy. So all of the organizations on this panel, of course, I think is important, as a resource. I'll also add that collaboration, so being able to partner with each other to move the work forward and bring strengths where others don't have, is another aspect as well.
And I want to add publishing materials. So, if you want, if you Google something and you want to, and, you get directed to our resource or our webpage, or you get directed to our social media page, you can download the resource and you can print it out, take it with you, so resources are very important, like education materials, resources, making sure that we have policymakers on our side. So that advocate for us, and also just making sure that we do more of these workshops. Like, it doesn't stop here. Like, we continue the conversations with one another. We continue to keep up with one another. We invite each other. I know you're coming to our beauty justice training tonight, but so just continuing to invite each other to this, and we keep the conversation and we hold the conversation with others, because we know this work. So we have to continue to talk to other people who don't know the work and understand, so that they can be advocates and they can in turn into advocates and continue this work. So I think those are some of the things that we are advocating for. And, California did AB 2762, which was and California did the Toxic Free Cosmetics Act. But if people don't know about them and people don't understand them, so we have to publish publications and materials and write articles, etc., so that people can read about them also. And then the word spreads quickly.
Definitely, definitely. I feel like this is one of the most important aspects of this. So we can teach people the facts, but we really need to teach people how to use this to empower their community. So I definitely want to turn to the thoughts and answers very soon. So if y'all could please, in just a sentence or two, let us know what actionable steps can attendees take, whether as consumers, advocates, policymakers, community members, to drive change in the beauty industry for a more equitable landscape.
Just a little bit. So I'm Lenny Green. Let me say congratulations, Madam.
I'll say that definitely the more that you can find workshops like these at panels like this, also maybe looking up if in your community there's an organization that does environmental justice work, to work on toxics that like you can get involved with. I'll say that I really like this work because there are already so many brands and people in the beauty industry that are like non-toxic, that are already representative of what we want to see. And so we have that there, and we know that it's easy to demand it. And I know that earlier someone in the comments and mentioned price and non-toxic products being more pricey. Well, if it's something that we demanded of all of our products, then we wouldn't have to pay for the luxury of not being poisoned, you know? But definitely, like, yeah, joining advocacy groups like this. I know at WEACT, if you're based in New York, you can join our organization, and we have a membership, and a lot of our members come with us actually to Albany to speak with legislators, and we get to advocate. We're actually having an advocacy day in March. But yeah, I'd say join groups, do advocate, and yeah, the future that we want, it's there, it's here.
So I'm going to say that one, you can join Black Women for Wellness. We're always looking for volunteers, and you can always join our Beauty Justice Initiative. We'd love to have you. And the other thing is that we must learn how to continue the stories, right? We have to post this. I know that one of the TikTok is my favorite. So, and when you put a TikTok video out, I'm gonna watch it. Stop. I'm gonna watch the TikTok video. So, I'm watching how you can wash your hair at TikTok, but I can also watch a video that educates me about the toxins in that hair that I'm purchasing to put on top of my head. So, so there should be more than just you selling me something. I also need to be educated. So I think that social media is the way to go. And if we continue to do personal storytelling, if we continue to have conversations, if we continue to educate the community about what is going on, and what is being sold and marketed to them, not just on TikTok, but on Instagram, on Facebook. So we have to also change the narratives of what we're seeing on these pages. And so, and we just continue to share our knowledge, just continue to, educate everyone and not learn something and hold it in. And also call on your legislators and tell them to regulate these beauty toxins. Call the FDA and tell them to regulate it.
I would add to that, educating each other. So if you're in this space and you learn something, tell your friends, tell your family about what you've learned. We all have either a membership or a listserv that you can join. EWC does. So if you're interested in staying up to date on policies and products even that you want to avoid, you can subscribe to the Equity and Wellness Collaborative on my website. WEACT, Black Women for Wellness, and some of the other advocacy organizations to stay informed and follow the social medias as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, this was just very insightful coming from somebody who just started working on this in October. I really appreciate all your insights and just ways that you've found how to bring this issue to community and bring it with the most impact that not only places us in a better position to be educated, but also places pressure on industries to do better. So with that, I wanted to turn to you all, our community members. Unfortunately, we have a lot of folks and not a lot of time. So we have we have a closing and resources section that I definitely want to give to you guys as things that you can take back tangibly. So we're going to spend about 8 minutes, I want to say, on questions, and anything that isn't covered, I can definitely get back to you with resources. So if you want to come off mute, we can answer questions, or if you'd like to raise your hand, I think that would be good. Before I start reading.
Do you want to answer some questions that are in the chat already that people
Yeah.
asked while you were speaking?
Let me take a look.
So the first one that I'm seeing is from Tiffany, and it says a lot of individuals in lower income communities feel overwhelmed with their day-to-day lives. How can we make the transition to utilizing healthier alternatives a bit easier or more feasible?
I can talk a little bit about that one. I think earlier we were talking about how many products we use every single day. Maybe it starts with just starting from there and doing one product at a time. Take one product that you're using, look at its ingredients and find substitutions. Small is a lot, just changing one product, you're already eliminating so many chemicals that you're coming in contact with. I'll say that there are also a lot of apps and different resources that you can go that have like a lot of things that you can buy. I know X, you're probably gonna talk about those, but like Cleary, EWG. I love Mamavation. She does a lot of research on like PFAS and things like that. But yeah.
Someone else had also asked earlier in the webinar for thoughts on Yuka, the app. I'm not sure if you were going to talk about that already, X.
I don't believe I had Yuka down. Or if y'all would like to explain Yuka versus the other ones you guys use as panelists, that would be good. I know Arnedra, y'all are very into Cleary.
Yeah, we're into Cleary. So I know a little bit about Yuka, but Yuka, yeah, is not one. But I do want to say something with the other question. I do want to say that when I first started doing this work, I think I used about 40 to 50 products a day. And so you don't realize it when you add up your mouthwash, when you add your toothpaste and all of that. You really don't realize how many products you use a day. If you separate the lipstick, I never forget this. I tried to tell Janet Noodleman that the lipstick and the foundation was one. She said, no, you have to write all of it down. So what I will say is that we also put a lot of money into this. So we don't want you to go into your bathroom and throw out everything today. But like Elizabeth said, start off small and then don't repurchase it. But I know everyone, I don't know if y'all seen on TikTok again, but Project Pan, where they're saying use what you have, and you will also see a budget savings when you start using what you have. So that would be my suggestion, but I do know that the Yuka app, you can also use it for food. So if you you go in and you scan your stuff and you start seeing like the red and the yellow, then you know like, okay, I'm going to use this, but I might not repurchase this. So I can find out more information about Yuka for you, and then whoever asks the question, and email it to them if they would like for me to do that.
Yes, please. There are definitely so many different forms of technology, and we are going to get into some of those forms today, little later on in the resources. But Cassie, were there any other questions?
A couple more. Are you gonna post all the panelists' contact info? Because someone was asking about collaborating. I'm not sure who exactly they were talking about. But will everyone's contact info be at the end or in the follow-up email?
It will be in the follow-up email.
Okay. And then Arnedra, I think you were talking about your next Zoom call after this. You were having a beauty justice training. Someone asked about the link for that.
Yes. So, X, did you put it in the PowerPoint, or should I just drop the link?
You can drop it. That would be
Okay, I'll
great.
drop it. Okay, I'm gonna drop it in
Okay.
right now. So I gotta go to my email, and then I will drop it in for you all. And I do hope you join us. And if you complete all 4 of the sessions, you get a certificate and an awesome gift. Because the one thing I like is fancy, so you'll get awesome gift. Okay.
Love that. Yeah, and while you do that, we have one question from Nicole. Hey, Nicole. So she said some of the general harms from these products have been known for decades, even specific harms with toxic chemicals, even if the specific harms from toxic chemicals may not be known. Why do you all think it is hard for Black women and women in general to divest from known harmful products?
I think I'll attempt to try to answer this. Again, I use the tobacco analogy. I think it's something, we're consumers. And I think if you've been using something for such a long time, it just starts to become ingrained with, things that you're doing. Or similar, like I said, to tobacco, some of it is kind of like addictive nature, I would say. Um, but I think the more awareness we have on it, or the more it's constantly in your face, I think that's when we start to see more change. Like I think there, if I'm not mistaken, there was a study where I read where it said if women who are postmenopausal that use hair relaxers are over 50%, have 50% more chance of getting a certain type of cancer than other women. And I think me just assessing my own age and kind of looking into the future, it kind of scares me that if I was to continuously use this product, I would be subjecting myself to cancer. So I think just having that constantly in the back of your mind and in your face, like a lot more, I think that could help, divest. But I think if someone's been doing something for a long time, it's hard to break up that pattern.
And I also think that we also have to, when we go into the store, I think that we are not taught. We're just taught that if it's in the market, it's good for us. Because there was a time where people drank sodas every day, all day. Right now, we're seeing it's linked to diabetes. So cigarettes, people smoke cigarettes on TV, and then we realized it was linked to cancer. So I don't think. Also, I think if we go into the store and we purchase something, then we think because it's being sold to me on this shelf, it is it's not bad for me. And then we find out years later that it's not good for you. So that's where the education and the materials come from, to make sure that we know what we're reading. Because if they hadn't put it out there that cigarettes cause cancer, there would probably be more people who smoke cigarettes. So there would be more secondhand smoke. So it has to also be put out, and from advocates like us. And once it continue and we continue these conversations and we get commercials and PSAs and social media, then people will think twice before they purchase a product.
And then the last couple of questions, X, were from a few minutes ago, but they were both just kind of asking what kind of products do you recommend? Do you have a list of bad products? What kind of ingredients should people be looking into?
Yes, so with that, I want to say we only have room for one more question, but that is a great transition to our closing and resources because we have a lot of information now, especially thanks to the groups on this call, that tell us what products are good and what products we should be using. So thank y'all for your questions. Thank you, panelists, again for lending your time and your expertise to this space. But yeah, I just want to focus the last 10 minutes on giving you guys some actionable steps and some insight to what this really looks like in action. So we have a lot of resources, y'all. The first one is the non-toxic Black beauty product database. This is housed under the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners who have the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics. Marcha, as well as Arnedra, are members of the advisory board of the Non-Toxic Black Beauty Project. So yeah, it has a lot of information. The site itself has a lot of information about red lists or things you should totally avoid. But this database is specifically for the products that are safe, that have been gone through a comprehensive check of what exactly is in them. And I believe this is updated fairly frequently. I think the last update was April of 2024. So yes, the products are very, very legit. I actually got one for my birthday from one of my friends. It was my birthday yesterday. So I was happy about that. So yeah, we have, and Cassie will be dropping the link. You can feel free to take a picture of the QR code, but Cassie will also be dropping the link to each resource in the chat. Thank you. Okay. Next one, Black Women for Wellness. So like I said, or like Arnedra said, resources, projects, data. They have the study called You Have the Right to Know. They did it with Occidental College and the Silent Spring Institute. And yeah, it basically surveyed Black women, primarily based in California, about their perceptions on health, and how those perceptions shape their buying behaviors. So it's really good as just like context to see that like you're not alone in using these products. You're also not alone in being harmed by them or concerned about them. So that all these links, like I said, will be dropped. I just wanted to move on for the sake of time. Thank y'all for all the good birthday wishes. And yeah, technology. So I asked the question earlier in the chat, how many products do y'all use? And, it's good to count them all, but it's also good to make sure we know what are in all, if not most of them. So we have a couple resources, the Yucca app, the Environmental Working Group Skin Deep program, which I personally use. You can look up either the barcode or the name of your product, and it literally has a scale from 1 to 10, what products could be potentially harming you and what are those products linked to. So for example, I know Dark and Lovely, their No Lie hair relaxer is actually at number 9, right? And whereas some of my products that I just started using are 1 to 2. So really trying to make those discernments based on the data that you see for yourself and also when you're ready. So like what was said before, we're not expecting you to throw out all your products, just making a more, starting to make more informed decisions about how we use them. Yeah, we have Cleary and the Toxic Free Future Retailer's Report Card. The Retailer Report Card is more general to what I guess industries, what companies are doing the best in terms of environmental sustainability. So that's just to let y'all know. And yeah, those are some resources. Then we have the site, the Tea on Toxic Beauty. So we are actively growing this campaign, and you can read more of the blogs. I've written about this. I've written them in collaboration with Marcia, as well as Molly, who's the environmental advocate here, who will be also talking about the legislative components in New Jersey. So feel free to visit the page. Love to see you there. Awesome. And last but not least, we are rolling out a Beauty with Impact working group. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Anybody who wants to join. We are trying to start a coalition in New Jersey about beauty justice, having other coalition members from different states join us because the purpose really is to recognize that there needs to be a dedicated effort here, and how we can support people in other states. So a lot of, or what I found from my research, this is one of the first time really New Jersey is taking a lead on a conversation on beauty justice. We see a lot of great work from California, from New York, but we really need to be actively talking to people who are in the space or related to this space already to just support each other legislatively and in community aspects. So yeah, if you would like to join the working group, the QR code is here. It's also at the end, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. But please, yes, we are having a working group. In it, we're definitely going to be doing some community outreach, some storytelling about your own stories related to beauty justice. You don't have to be directly impacted to have a story. Even just learning about this can be your story. So it really is inclusive to all who wants to learn more about it. And then I will turn it to Molly for a couple legislative actions. Welcome, Molly.
Hi, friends. I'm Molly Cleary. I'm the environmental advocate here at the New Jersey Office for Clean Water Action. So I know that title sounds kind of like, what is that? But I do a lot of our legislative work. So I'm more of our boots in the state house, your lobbyist. So I get to work with legislators and it's a lot of fun. Next slide, X. Thank you. So currently we have two bills up, specifically S 1042/A 1421. That means it's the same bill. The Protecting Against Forever Chemicals Act. So that would be taking PFAS, also known as perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, out of our personal products. So that would be beauty products. That would also go from our clothes or our carpets. Things like that. The bill is extremely comprehensive, and we've been working with our friends over at Toxic Free Future, but also with our good friend Gretchen Salter, who's been working on PFAS for a long time. So thank you to them. And then there's also S 30. Sorry, my screen is going low. If it'll stop, 3643, A 2437, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was actually passed today in the Senate budget. Yes, it was. Okay. So thanks to the advocacy of Senator Teresa Ruiz, Senator Renee Burgess, and Senator Shirley Turner, this bill has been passed in the Senate. I was there. Fantastic to see it unanimously, in fact. And since it was already passed in the Assembly, it will be moving on to a floor vote towards the end of the month, hopefully. So that will be signed into law quite soon, fingers crossed. So along with that bill, there's a lot of new advocacy that's been happening in the State House, specifically by some of our female legislators that we've been working so hard with. So for more about these bills, get in contact with X, join the working group. And if you have any specific questions for me about the legislative work that I do and how we have community advocacy and legislative advocacy and put it together, I will have my email in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Yes, and for anybody who presented on this call, we will definitely follow up with contact information if that's okay with you all, just to keep each other connected. And yeah, those are two current things that we're working on and moving right along. Our time is almost up, friends. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to share. Please continue to just be thinking about this in your daily lives and relationship to the people you know. Join local campaigns. I know some of y'all aren't in Jersey, but we can definitely collaborate, build coalitions. I know WEACT for Environmental Justice already has a beauty justice working group, which I am in. So yeah, please connect with everybody. And last but not least, before we go, please, can you fill out our post-webinar survey? That would be amazing. We want to make sure that we can continue to do these events, make sure that it's relevant to you all, and that we all are benefiting from it, because it's not for me. It really is for everybody to advocate for safer practices. So thank you. And I will give y'all a couple seconds to do that. If you already have it, have a great night. Thank you so much.
And those links that you were talking about earlier in the chat, X, they are dropped in the chat now. So
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'll leave it up for about 30 more seconds. Let people take a picture if they like. And at the end of the survey, actually, it should only take about 5 minutes. There's another question about if you want to join the working group. So it's not too late to get that link. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you guys all for being here. Again, thank you for spending part of your night learning about this. And I hope to see y'all at future events, either virtually or in person. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for now. And switch right over. Yeah. Okay, folks. Have a great night. All
Great
right.
job, X. Great
Thank
job,
you.
X.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
facilitation.
Thank you.
Much.